Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the High-Level Policy Dialogue for ASEAN Chairmanship 2023. Welcome to the Parallel Session 3. In this session, we will discuss about energy transition, highlighting on sustainable development. And to lead the discussion, I would like to call upon the stage the moderator of this session, Senior Energy Economist from ERIA. Please welcome Dr. Phoumin.
Very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining this important session on energy transition. I hope throughout these 2 hours you will enjoy whatever you feel a lot in your mind about the region and energy transition. I think we have assembled the best speaker in our region to share the insight and knowledge that they've gone through many years and regionally also in their countries. So it's my great pleasure to moderate this session, and also it's a great pleasure to, I think, to have 3 eminent speakers to some extent in our region. May I invite Professor Norasikin come on the stage, please? I think Professor Norasikin is a Deputy Director from Malaysian University. You can dive into her CV in your badge. All the material available, just scan your QR code. You get all the access information of speakers as well as also the presentation. Take a seat, please. And may I also invite Dr. Ha, please come on the stage. I think Dr. Ha is from Vietnam, but she have a lot of experience and she do a lot of research around the region. Dr. Ha is a managing director at VinFuture, kind of technologies, startup technologies. But she also been working as a professor in university. And lastly is my colleague, Dr. Joko. Joko-san, please. And Joko, he have very much experience in the past working in Europe many years on transportation, and he learned a lot in terms of energy transition in the region. He's currently my colleague. And again, it's my great pleasure to chair this session. And again, make fun and feel free to ask any question. And I hope you will enjoy today's session. Without further ado, I want just to dive right into what is the message they want to send us today, so that we can save a lot of time for the question and answer. First of all, I would like to invite Professor Norasikin. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Phoumin. So allow me to stand for my presentation. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, dan selamat petang kepada ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak, anak-anak. Saya faham anak-anak ada di sini. And good afternoon to everyone, all the distinguished speakers. So I'm very delighted to be here to present my topics, energy transition and circular economy synergies towards net zero agenda. Because this is the topics that I think is quite related in terms of the energy transition in this region. So we will have about 5 subtopics here that we will go through one by one. So what is actually the net zero agenda? So the concept for the net zero agenda actually refers to the goal, because the goal of reducing emission level as close to zero and offsetting the emission. So we know that we have like the Paris Agreement. So we have the net zero emission or net zero emission by 2050. So that will be the drive why we go for the net zero agenda. And as you know that more than 70 countries have set the goal, actually including Malaysia. We also have our energy transition very soon. In my country, end of this month, which it will be launched, the policy or the strategy on the energy transition. And all the, I think in the world, globally, have talked on the net zero targets. Okay, and then half of the GHG emission for 2020 in 2020 were from the top 7 countries. As mentioned here, China, USA, India, the European Union, Indonesia is included, who contribute the most emission, and the Russian Federation and Brazil. And as I mentioned before, the drive to what we are going to do, the net zero agenda, because of the Paris Agreement, because we have to make sure that we keep the global warming less than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then the CO2 emission by 45% by 2030, and to reach the NZE by 2050. And the energy sector is about the 3/4 of GHG emission in 2023. This is based on the latest report by the United Nations. And are we on the track to reach the net zero by 2050? Of course, no. The reason because the current, what we have done now, we still lead to a sizable increase, almost 11% of global greenhouse gas emission by 2030, which we compare to the 2010 level. So this is how we have to go, what we have to do to ensure that we can reach the net zero by 2050. So what is the key milestone on the pathway to the net zero emission by 2050? If you see from the figure, you can see by now, 2021 to 2025, we still have nearly 50% of electricity from low emission sources, means that another 15% from the fossil base. And then if you want to have the net zero, we have to ensure that we should have nearly 90% of electricity from the renewable sources. And also, if you look at this side, you should have, like, for example, here, no new internal combustion engine heavy truck, say, or car, means that we have to get the EV, okay? So, and then the 50% of heating demand met by the heat pumps. This is another potential technology. If we want to reach the net zero by 2045, this one 2045, this is all the pathway that we have to go through. But we are in these stages, 2021 to 2025. So there is a long way to go. That's why I said that we are not really can achieve the target if we still have to do, we still doing the current practice that we are doing now. So how to support the net zero agenda? First is to shift the energy mix away from fossil fuel towards the zero emission electricity or using the renewables and other low emission energy. And then the second is to increase energy efficiency, okay? Increasing the energy efficiency practice and managing the demand for energy. Then utilizing the circular economy, where here that we will highlight here on the how to relate the circular economy and the energy transition. And the third one, actually, what they propose is to deploy the carbon capture, utilization and storage technology. So this is the three main action that we can do to support or to achieve our net zero agenda. So this is we want to see the center where we can meet energy transition and circular economy. So So both of them, energy and circular economy, have the same goal actually, sustainability. This is a sustainability transition. But where they meet actually, so if in energy transition, we are focusing more to increase the penetration of renewable energy, flexibility of energy system, low carbon and distributed energy resources, energy storage, and so on. But for the circular economy, we are refer to the economic system that circulated with end of life through strategies such as reducing, reusing, recycling, which is more regenerative. Okay, and the sharing benefit, both of them, is waste to energy actually, because both is looking to utilize renewable and one is to have a low carbon, okay, low carbon products or low carbon manufacturing. So, and then recycling of end of life products, for example here photovoltaic panels, and then the large scale electrification of transportation for the EV. So we have a supply and demand of critical material here. So this is actually promote the concept of recycling. Okay, so this is the sharing benefit for both energy transition and circular economy. And where we meet actually is the manufacturing sector, which we use energy. Okay, and since I talk about the circular economy, I would like to share the ASEAN framework for circular economy that have been documented in 2021, and we have looking the current program and initiative last year. So this is the initiative that we have gathered, and then we have categorized into 3 main sector category, which is agriculture, transportation, and also the energy. So, but here I just want to focus on the energy part. So, circular economy actually, if you can make a definition here, actually, the circular economy is actually the transition from the linear economy, and then we have the recycling economy, but still have waste here, even we have a recycling, and then we have a circular economy where we try to minimal the waste, okay? And this actually circular economy, as I mentioned before, addressing the climate change and environmental challenge, and also its needs, okay? Natural scientific knowledge, as well as engineering expertise. So the science, technology, and innovation is very important in the circular economy. So for the ASEAN framework for circular economy, we have a strategic goal. We have 3 strategic goals, which is resilient economy, resource efficiency, and sustainable growth. And also the 5 strategic priorities, where we look on the standard harmonization and mutual recognition of circular product and services, and trade openness and trade facilitation and goods and services, and then innovation, digitalization, and emerging technologies, sustainable finance and innovative investment, and efficient use of energy and other resources. So this is based on the priorities area that we are looking for and focus for the regional level. So the implementation plan, we look into the 3 duration, which is we have a short term, which is the focus is to set the direction. And we have a mid-term, which is to create enabling condition and level playing field. And for the long term, actually, is to mainstreaming at sectoral and economic level. So this is 3 duration for the implementation plan. So here, if you see how the nexus between the energy, agriculture, and transportation. So energy play the main role for both agriculture and transportation for the both sector. So for the priority area 1, which is circular product and services in ASEAN. For the short term priority area and programs, so we focus on to harmonize technical regulation and equivalent of technical regulation, standard and acceptance of the result of conformity assessment procedures, to explore the list of standard and requirement for extending product product life. So this is related to the designing of the product, and the initiative program, as this is listed here, so no need for me to read all of this, and then I think you can refer from the presentation material. And then for another short term is to create a sustainable supply of raw material via standard in the energy industry, identification and promote the sustainable energy services company, standard and regulation. So this is all the current initiative and the program that has been implemented, and what we are going to implement for the region. And for the priority area 2, which is trade openness and trade facilitation in circular goods and services. So the priority area is to facilitate trade for providing cross-border trade on secondary energy material waste, technologies, equipment, product and related services. So this is the example of the initiative and the programs that has been identified for the region. And also for the medium term priority area, so the focus is on the harmonization of the technical regulation and equivalence of technical regulation standard and acceptance of result of conformity assessment. So this is also the programs that has been identified. And for the long term, we are looking for the free trade agreement for waste, scrap and relevant goods and services, not only to the country itself or the economies, but also the cross-border. So one of the example is liberalized trade in circular goods and services. And for the priority area 3, which is enhanced role of innovation, digitalization and emerging green technology. So the short term, the focus that we have put it here is to have a supply chain tracking technology, energy efficient and extraction of raw materials. So it's also create greater transparency across the supply chain. So this is the short term action plan, and the example has been highlighted here, which is we already have some standard, but we have to revisit again or revise the standard and requirement. And for the medium term is to improve the efficiency and effectiveness existing policy and program related to energy, use digital platform. I think this is, we have talked a lot today about the digitalization this morning, and improve the energy use performance of a broad range of products throughout their life cycle and business chain across the region. So the same initiative where we already have a standard and requirement, but we have to revisit and revise. And for the medium term, we are looking on the to increase collaboration on circular economy, research and development activities, and support innovation and R&D on the energy efficient use in the agriculture and transport sector. So this is the example of the initiative where we would like to have a collaboration with agencies in research and development, and also to form the R&D network in the region. And for priority area 4, which is competitive, sustainable finance and innovative ESG investment, the short term is to have a collaborative advancement of ASEAN-wide sustainable investment and innovative funding. So this is what we have identified, which is to have a proposed circular economy project proposal to donors on green or climate change issue, and also to have a collaboration with all ASEAN financial institutions or donors that are interested in the environmental issue. And the last priority area, which is number 5, which is focusing on the energy, efficient use of energy and other resources. we have the only long-term priority area and programs, which the first one focus for the agriculture. So to have a study on decarbonizing the ASEAN agriculture and forestry sector. And the example of initiative is to have to develop a common understanding of the potential pathway and decarbonize the ASEAN agriculture and forestry sector. And for the short-term priority area and programs, the priority area is to enhance sharing and adoption of experience, project, knowledge, which is related to sustainable transport through the networking with the existing training center, education and expert institution. So this is the example of initiative, which is the current initiative and the future initiative. We look on to publish on the ASEAN database on sustainable transport initiative and exchange information and capacity building through expert group meeting for safe, secure, green and user-friendly transport. There is actually so many initiatives, but this is only the highlighted that I want to share. And for the short-term priority area in energy, we focus on to revisit and establish proper standard regulation and requirement. For example here, to accelerate sharing and leasing of energy system. We want to have a decentralized system, for example, battery exchange system, and also we propose peer-to-peer renewable energy trading. And for the midterm, is to provide electricity to rural communities. This is another focus which is very important, which is because we found that there is still area in this region there is no electricity. And another short-term priority area, but this is for the transportation, is to look into commitments towards a sustainable transport system. So this is all the initiative related to the transportation. Okay, 3 ways the circular economy is vital for the energy transition. So I just highlight number 1, recycling can conserve critical material because according to the latest report by IEA, International Energy Agency, getting to net zero by 2040 will require a 6-fold increase in mineral input by 2040 if we still do our current practice. And there is a material here that I highlighted, which is neodymium, a rare earth metal in many electric motors and generator. For example, the wind turbine, which is give the highly polluting. Okay, so recycling actually, if we adopt the recycling, it could help recover metal from the almost 60 million tons of smartphone, laptops, hard drive, that many other electronic devices that you can recycle. And also, the second one is using low carbon circular material. So to get to the net zero, clean technology such as electric car or energy transition equipment will need to be made from zero emission material. So as well as it produce less emission. So this is what they have proposed. And then by 2040, it's mentioned here that most vehicles are predicted to be electric. However, the material used to produce them could account for 60% of their total lifetime emission as opposed to 18% in 2020. So this is how we have to do the circular economy where we have to recycle again the critical material. And the third one, designing circular system. This is another action that we have to do. Because by early 2030, the first generation of solar will come offline, and by 2050, it is predicted that we would be decommissioning 78 million tons of panel per year. So this is like a waste, okay? And the same year, wind turbine could account for 43 million tons of waste. So the renewable also generate a waste. So you can see here. So we have to think about how to recycle all that material. And also the battery we can recycle actually to use it for the solar home system from the car. So this is another alternative rather than we can also recycle the material by doing the material recovery process. And as a conclusion, so the coordinated circular economy, energy transition, actually have a synergistic effect. For example, we have to promote circular economy activities among industry, reducing energy demand, and attaining additional greenhouse gas mitigation potential. And the circular economy can be a source of low carbon material. For example, to recycle aluminium can emit up to 95% less carbon dioxide than you use from the virgin sources. If you recycle means we can get less 95% carbon dioxide emission. And then what is the challenges for the energy and circular economy transitioning challenge? Of course, redesigning the value chain, aligning security with business interests or business to business, because it's not easy for you to implement the circular economy, not only because of the concept or the business model, but also because of the startup cost is quite high. And also promoting a circular behavior also difficult because this is need awareness. And we should also design the effective policy to make sure that we can implement both circular economy and also energy transition. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Norasikin. I think perhaps a lot of questions, but what we want to do is to have all the three presentations and leave ample time for you to have question and answer. Actually, what is the challenge? Actually, she already provide good information about what needs to be done in terms of transition toward net zero, including how circular economy could be very important in terms of recycling, reuse, make sure that this can have a very low impact on environment, at the same time have to save a lot. But the more important, what in her presentation is about rare earth mineral. When we talk about reaching net zero, then you need to accelerate a lot of renewable and clean technologies. Those, let's say, wind turbine, battery vehicle, and then battery storage, electrolyzer, all those need a rare earth mineral, critical mineral. Are we going to keep mining those? They are very much environmental unfriendly, very toxic. When we talk about this supply chain of these rare earths become the most important new energy security in our region, because if the demand in her presentation going to increase by 6 or 7-fold, how you secure those supply? Because it means there are not enough material to go into battery storage, EV vehicle, all this clean technology, electrolyzer and others. So it's quite important to keep in mind that this material need to be used in very environment friendly. And one of the secret is recycle. You don't need, perhaps the IEA may predict wrong, my challenge, because if you do proper recycling, by that time demand could be stable. You don't need to mining more. The more you mining, you're destroying more. I think keep in mind that what is the energy transition? How to embark smoothly, able for all countries to reach zero emission. So it's very big challenge because this region uses a lot of fossil fuel. All energy infrastructure built on fossil fuel, oil, coal, natural gas. 80% of our energy system rely on fossil fuel. We need transformative way, innovative, including technology, circular economy, everything, in order to make sure we reach zero emission, at the same time ensure that energy security, affordability, and accessibility. This is quite important. If you transit not smoothly, the energy cost very high. I think later on the expert will introduce you. There are many ways of to reaching net zero, but which way you want to go? There are no single way. You need a multiple, depend on each country system. You need to design that. Indonesia different from Cambodia, from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Europe. Europe pushes us to go net zero by just clean technology immediately. We agree. We agree to go net zero, but how we walk there is a different, because we need to ensure affordability based on our system. I think after that, keep in mind that including financing those infrastructure. Keep in mind on that. I think we will take question and answer later on. It's my great pleasure to invite Professor Ha to make another presentation. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the first presentation, and a very good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for being here. My name is Ha, and I'm from the VinFuture Foundation based in Hanoi, Vietnam. And as the first professor already talked about the energy transition experience from Malaysia, I would like to talk about what's happening in our country, Vietnam, and hopefully it can draw some implication for Indonesia and also for other countries in the region. Can you hear me clearly? All right, great. So it is my great pleasure to be here, and thanks, Dr. Phoumin. My presentation is about energizing the future, unleashing Vietnam's energy transition and the regional trade ripple effect. Right, so let's talk about energy transition. So energy is a very important input to almost activities, right, including the daily human activities, also economic activities, but it's also the source, important source for carbon dioxide emission, and also it pollutes the environment. So for this presentation, that is the outline of my talk. First of all, I would like to talk about the state of energy transition in Vietnam, and also talk about the JETP, Just Energy Transition Partnership. That is very important partnership. It's bring the financing mechanism for our country's energy transition. And also, I would like to talk about an example from Germany, that is the successful energy transition and how this imply for the benefit, right, the trade integration benefit. And then it will be the policy recommendation and next step, and then I conclude my talk. Okay, so as you know, Vietnam is still a developing country in the region, and it's experienced fast economic growth, right? So the rapid growth of the economic activity in Vietnam lead to a substantial increase in energy demand. And in order to support the economic activities, support the activities from various sectors and industry. And that is the reason why Vietnam need to go for a significant energy transition, which bring about multiple benefits. First of all, is for to combat the climate change, and then to secure the energy supply for the country and bring sustainable development, right? So for the energy transition, the objective is to move to the cleaner and sustainable source of the energy use, and it's also very critical for mitigating the climate change, reducing carbon dioxide emission, and also achieve the energy security. And it's also help to foster economic growth by unlocking the potential for renewable energy sources. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to talk briefly about the situation in Vietnam, the energy landscape. So like many other countries in Asia and ASEAN, coal still remains a dominant source of energy in Vietnam. So it contributes about 40% of the electricity generation in Vietnam. And there has been a remarkable progress in developing renewable energy sectors in Vietnam, particularly in wind and solar power. And this has made Vietnam become one of the fastest growing markets for renewables in the region, surpassing Thailand. Okay, so Vietnam has an extensive river system and mountainous terrain, which offer vast hydropower potential and making hydroelectricity an essential components of the energy mix in our country. And Vietnam also investing in the expansion and modernization of its power infrastructure. So we know that the grid infrastructure, right, could be a limitation to adopt a renewable energy. So that's why we need to upgrade and expand the infrastructure. And thanks to all the potential of the country and also the government incentive, Vietnam has become a very attractive destination for investment, especially FDI in renewable energy. Okay, so I would like to give you some key figure about the major energy source in Vietnam in 2022, so it's very recent figure. So that is the installed capacity, right? The contribution of the energy source to the electricity generation. So there are some key observations we can observe from this table. First of all, it's a coal, right? So it's no surprise. Coal is still the dominant energy source in terms of both installed capacity, 32.5%, and also electricity generation, which is about 40%. And followed by hydropower, right, closely, 29% installed capacity, and 35% in terms of electricity generation. And then we have the wind and solar power, right? A very significant portion, 26% in terms of installed capacity. But due to the infrastructure limit, it only contributes 12%. So you can see the contradictory figure here. And then gas, 9.2% and 11%, and then the others, right? Okay, so so the country has made very great effort to move quickly from coal-based power to cleaner energy mix. Okay, and the government has made ambitious commitment to for the greenhouse gas reduction and net zero emission by 2050. Meanwhile, phasing out the coal-based power by 2040s. Okay, so there has been many supportive policies like the feed-in tariff. So that has been very popular nowadays for renewable energy investment in our country. And thanks to all of this, Vietnam has become the regional leaders in renewable energy with significant growth in solar and wind power. And as I mentioned before, it surpassed Thailand, right, as the renewable energy leaders in Southeast Asia. And the meaning of energy transition is not only about leading to a cleaner energy mix, but it's also lead to creation of new jobs, okay, and also, of course, foster economic growth. All right, so a very important document that guides the energy transition in Vietnam, that is the National Power Development Plan, or we call PDP for short. And the most recent approved one is the PDP-8, which covers the target, the objective, and also the action plan for the 10-year period from 2021 to 2030, and with a vision to 2050. So what are the highlights, what are the features of this energy transition as mentioned in the PDP-8? First of all, very important, phasing out coal thermal power by 2050. And then the share of solar and wind power must reach 27% by 2030, and then about 29% by 2050, right? And explore offshore wind potential, okay? Increase LNG thermal power, and then utilize various sources of energy, renewable energy. Okay, some other highlights of the PDP-8 is also focus on self-generated and self-dissipating power sources, promote supply-demand balance within the region, and limits the inter-regional balance. There's no limit on installed capacity for self-generated solar and wind power, so on and so forth. All right, so in this very long table, it's actually the message is very clear. It brings the two scenarios, right? The first one does not consider net zero commitment, and the second one consider net zero commitment. So you can see the picture here very clear between the two scenarios. when net zero commitment is not considered, right, coal, you can see coal increase steadily over time, okay? So it will rise steadily over time. But when the net zero commitment is considered, right, coal decline over time and reach zero by 2050, right? So that is the main difference between the two scenarios. Of course, for the others, renewable energy sources, we can see under the net zero commitment, the increase is much more significant compared to the case of non-considering net zero commitment. All right, so when we talk about energy transition, it has a lot of potential benefit, but it's also come with many difficulties, challenges, right? It's not only about technical expert, it's not only about the policy mechanism, but also about the money. So financing mechanism is also very important. And that is the reason why Vietnam signed the JETP, called Just Energy Transition Partnership, with many countries, including the EU, the UK, France, Germany, the US, right, Canada, Japan, Norway, Denmark, on December last year. The purpose of this partnership is to mobilize more than 15.5 billion USD from the public and private finance to accelerate the transition from coal in Vietnam. So that is very important. So JETP will help to promote the suitable pathway to green energy transition in Vietnam. And this program the purpose is to provide support to people and communities that are also impacted by the transition. So it's talking about the external effect as well. So what are the initiatives of this very important JETP? So there are important targets that the JETP will provide support to Vietnam. So you can see a few here. First of all, it will bring forward the peaking date for all greenhouse gas emission from 2035 to 2030. So 5 years shorter, right? And then help reduce the peak annual power sector emission by up to 30%, right? Advancing the peak period date to 2030, so also 5 years shorter, okay? So on and so forth. So if all of these targets are achieved, then we can expect to have 500 megatons of cumulative emission cut down by 2035. So it's very important achievement. So currently, after the partnership is signed, Vietnam has been working with the supporting partner countries in order to develop the JETP RMP. So that RMP stands for Resource Mobilization Plan. So this plan is a comprehensive strategy of how we can use the funding, 15.5 billion USD funding, to encompass investment, regulation, reform, labor issues. So it's like action plan, right? Detailed action plan. So JETP is not just about the benefit for Vietnam, but it also have implication for the regional trade. And those are the implications, right? So it can increase the green trade opportunities in the region. It can enhance the regional collaboration. It creates the competitive advantage for low emission industry, okay? Because previously we often say that when the industry go for the lower emission, right, it can very costly put them like disadvantage, but now it's a different time. So incentive for technology transfer, impact on energy trade dynamics. So now the country will try to increase their competitive advantage in terms of low emission product. So I think that's a very good thing. Shift in investment pattern, alignment with the international trade agreement, right? So nowadays people talk about the new generation free trade agreement. So why we call new generation? Because it does not only care about the good in terms of total product, but also care about the environmental impact. And reshaping the regional trade. Okay. Now, what are the benefits of the JETP for Vietnam? Yeah, we can easily talk about this benefit. Mitigate the climate change impact, right, bring sustainable energy development, enhance the energy security of the country, bring a lot of economic opportunities, right, in terms of FDI, job creation, so on and so forth, enhance the internal collaboration, especially with the EU partners, okay. Green trade and the market access, enhance reputation. Vietnam can position itself as a leader in terms of renewable energy development in the region, right? And enhance the regional leadership. Okay, so now I would like to talk about the case of Germany, okay? And we can see how integrate the energy transition into the economic development can help the country to be better off, right? And for this case, I would like to talk about energy wonder. So that is a German term, but it's translated into energy transition. So that is the that is a comprehensive and ambitious initiative of Germany with an aim to transform the energy system of the country from fossil fuel based to renewable energy source. And this one was launched in the early 2000s, right? And the primary goals is not different from what we are doing here. And so combat climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emission, enhance energy security, and promote sustainable economic growth, right? So based on this comprehensive energy transition plan, Germany has actually integrated into the trade policies and the requirement, right? So you can see the way they integrate is very comprehensive. Look at this table. Okay, so here are only some of the key aspects. I'm talking about a very comprehensive plan. So here's just a few key aspects. So you can see, for instance, right, they put, okay, on this into different aspects of the trade policy. Okay, so they have the minimum energy efficiency standard for appliance, includes environmental and energy provision in trade agreement, green finance investment, okay, and then member of International Renewable Energy Agency, ERIA, all right, so on and so forth. So with that very deep integration into the trade policy, you can see, right, it has bring Germany significant outcomes and impact, increased renewable energy adoption, global leadership in sustainable energy advocacy, right, economic benefit and job creation in the renewable energy sector, and mitigate climate change through the reduced greenhouse gas emission. So that's why that is a very good example, very excellent example that not only Vietnam, but I think many countries in the region can follow, right? Okay, so so far I talk a lot about the potential economic benefit of the energy transition in Vietnam. Also the story from the successful energy transition case like Germany. But in order to follow that example, like many other countries in the region, Vietnam also faced several challenges, as you can see here. So, right, we need to have a very careful planning to phase out coal power plant, because we're still very heavily dependent on it. So, need to be planned carefully. And also, we need to develop the infrastructure, right, like the grid system, so on and so forth, especially in the remote and rural areas. And then the country needs to mobilize adequate financing for large-scale renewable energy projects. So JETP is important, but of course it's not enough. And they need to build a skilled workforce proficient in renewable energy technologies. So in order to address the challenges, right, there is a need for the government to do, okay, and also the need for collaboration effort. So yeah, so you can read my slide here later. I think it's quite a few points that is not so strange to you, right? And I would like to come to the conclusion of my talk for the time interest. So in conclusion, Vietnam energy transition is a very transformative journey toward a sustainable and resilient future. And in order to go for that sustainable future, the country needs to overcome challenges in financing, infrastructure development, policy implementation, and that's why it's required the collaborative effort, right, from the government, private sector, and also the civil society. So there is a need to embrace innovation and international collaboration in order to accelerate the progress. And if Vietnam is successful, then it can inspire the neighboring country, and that will create the regional ripple effect, as I mentioned, right? So we will benefit from each other, external effect. So the energy transition present opportunities for domestic progress and regional impact, and Vietnam can be like inspirational feature, right, for the other countries to follow, right? So thank you very much for your attention, right?
Thank you so much, Professor Ha, to enlighten us on the Vietnam context. I think it's good to see Vietnam have to some extent, very clear roadmap toward the net zero from energy transition, how much financing is needed. Around 16 billion will be needed to transform coal-based, fossil-based infrastructure toward cleaner by 2050. I think this is very good. And not only Vietnam, I think all countries in ASEAN is prepared in this way. But they need to look into each of country endowed factor. Like Vietnam have a lot of not only solar, but also they have a burden of the offshore wind. This is very good, you know, solar and wind go together. But to get away from coal power infrastructure by 2040, it's quite hard. You need financing. If you push it too hard, the energy costs go immediately high. Unlike Europe, they transform long time. It's easy to transit to cleaner compared to us. So we need more innovative technology, connectivity, trade, and we need a kind of cost reduction in all these technologies. Otherwise, we cannot achieve simply this look kind of very careful. But it's a good news from, I think, although we have a double swan crisis. First is kind of COVID crisis, and then Ukraine, you know, the region not only rely on coal, oil, but natural gas as a bridging fuel. Europe takes all the spot availability of gas. It's give us starvation because they are richer than us. They can able to take away from us. So this kind of thing is really affect what is we are moving toward energy net zero. At the same time, we need to secure our system and affordability. I think we have a lot of questions, and we will come to that. I will not keep my colleague waiting because Professor Joko want to share a good thing to you about the region decarbonization effort. And please welcome Dr. Joko.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Phoumin. So, I think I have a very difficult task now because I'm the last speaker in this, and it's getting very near to 3 o'clock, and it is nap time for some of us. So, and the second thing that I just realized that I cannot stand there because a couple of days ago I had a neck problem, so I better stay here. So, okay, this is what I would like to talk about in this next couple of maybe 15 minutes about how ASEAN can decarbonize. This is we have heard from Professor Norasikin and then Dr. Ha about experience and best practices from Malaysia and then Vietnam. I just would like to now ask you or bring you to have a helicopter look to the situation in ASEAN. So this is basically my talking point today. So how ASEAN as a region, for example, can reach carbon neutrality or net zero. These two terms that we interchangeably use when talking about energy transition, but they have a slightly different meaning. And also, when we talk about this transition, about reaching the target, Mr. Phoumin have mentioned several times that ASEAN we are not Europe, we are not the Western countries, and we have very limited source of financing. We have less experience and less technology, less advanced technology than Western countries. So we should have different pathways. We should have different configuration of energy mix on how to reach those targets. And then many studies have been done, including the institution where I work, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and this Asia area, where we study and we make a roadmap of ASEAN countries how to get to that to those targets. So basically, we set the targets and then we put the constraint, which is the cost minimization, that we have to be able to reach those targets in our limit of affordability. And then we set what will be the optimized roadmap for technologies and then, of course, energy mix. So our principle is just an orderly transition toward carbon neutrality or net zero emission. So it should be gradual, like step by step. It should be pragmatic and then realistic. And again, what the three excellent speakers before me have brought about is that financing is very important. So then the question starts with the one, which technologies or which energy sources that we should start with. So as we know that Dr. Ha and also Professor Norasikin has shown that a lot of countries in the world have joined the bandwagon of net zero emission or carbon neutrality, and ASEAN countries as well. So we see that for the next 1 or 2 decades, we have targets in Malaysia, in Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Laos, for example, to have some reduction of emission with regard to our baseline or business as usual scenarios. And this derive actually from the Paris Agreement 2015-2016, which have been materialized in our national determined contribution. And then it comes the COP26, where a lot of countries set carbon neutrality or net zero emission. So we see here, like for example, Thailand, they have carbon neutral target by 2050 and then net zero by 2065. So those are 2 different targets. Then net zero is much more strict or stringent targets, because by net zero, it means that you will use green technology and no carbon need to be captured anymore. And we will see how we get there. So this is a chart that we can show you based on a study that have been conducted by ERIA and the Institute of Energy Economics Japan. So in the dotted line, we see the business as usual or BAU CO2 emissions in ASEAN total. So nowadays we are about 1,500 million ton of CO2 per year. And if we do nothing, then by 2060 we will reach almost 5 gigaton CO2 emission in that 2060. And what we can see is that we can set the target, and we can also get how we can gradually reach carbon neutrality or net zero emission. We have let's say 2 scenarios: the green one and the yellow one. So we see that from 2017 to 2030, in fact, all the scenarios allow CO2 emissions to increase. So this is one of the ASEAN's way. We don't oblige ourselves to go down, because we are not Europe, we are not Western Europe or Western countries, where social demographically we can say that they reach already stagnation. Demand will increase very slowly. Here in ASEAN, we experience and we are living the world of growing up. Of course, also in the energy demand. So we cannot say that CO2 emission have to decrease immediately. It is not possible. So until 2030, the 3 scenarios we have, for example, allow CO2 emissions to grow up and then go down gradually until 2050 or 2060. We see that there are two, the green one. The green one is the scenario of carbon neutrality, where we assume there will be carbon sink. Carbon sink, it means by reforestation or some managements in the land use that will allow natural forests to absorb CO2 emissions. So in the green curve, we will see that by 2060 we will still be at the level somewhere like 600 million ton of CO2 emission, while in the yellow curve, it is the hardest way or harder way, where we don't consider the carbon sink. So by 2060 it should be 0. And this is how we will get that. So in the left side is the baseline, and the right side it is the carbon neutrality scenario, where ASEAN will reach carbon neutrality by 2050 or 2060, and this will allow some carbon sink to absorb the CO2 emissions. And we see that in the baseline scenario, for example, the use of energy will will go from currently around 600 or 700 million ton of oil equivalent, and it will go to around 2 gigaton of oil equivalent. While in the carbon neutrality, it will be less. And we see that in the baseline, we will have in black, it is oil, and then in purple, it is natural gas, and then in red, it is coal. In the carbon neutrality scenario, we see that the part of oil will be still there, and with the part of natural gas as well. But we see that there will be an increase in solar, in wind, and then in geothermal and hydro, and also in nuclear. And we see two new energy carrier source, which is ammonia and hydrogen. And this means that when we talk about carbon neutrality or carbon neutrality in ASEAN, it doesn't mean that we will use 100% green technology or green resource by mid of the century. No, we will still have oil, we will still have a natural gas, but of course we will combine that with technologies to absorb or to capture the carbon, and I will show you in the next. So this is when we talk about the CO2 emission itself, and then how the emission will be produced. In the baseline scenario, we will have the green, which is the transportation sector, being the kind of like maybe 35% by 2060. This is baseline scenario. And then the electricity will be around 35% also, and then the industry sector will be like 30%. And we see that, this is almost 5 gigaton of CO2 by 2060. And in the carbon neutral scenario, we'll see that transportation sector will still be emitting CO2, because some modes of transport, such as long distance freight transport, we consider will be still using oil. And I mean, like it is kind of hard to abate transportation modes, not as easy as, for example, motorcycles or private cars, where we are now starting to electrify. And then we'll see industry sector will still emit. And it is interesting that electricity will be, we can target that electricity or power generation will stop to emit by 2040, and they will have a negative emission. That means that electricity will be used to absorb carbon emission. And then we will have the black line is the technology to take to absorb the carbon, which is the direct air capture or CCUS and so on. And the green one is the land use, so the carbon sink. So in the dots, we see that emission is not zero, but it will be absorbed by the carbon sink. That is our scenario. So again, I've also show you that the power generation is the sector that will be first to decarbonize, and this is how it is. So in the baseline, we'll see that it will reach a generation of like 3,500 terawatt hours, and in the carbon neutrality, it will be double. It means that a lot of sectors will be electrified. So much more electricity will be used in the future, whether it is industry, transport, and so on. And we see that ammonia, hydrogen, and also solar PV, geothermal, hydro will be there. And also combination of coal with biomass, coal with ammonia, and natural gas with ammonia and hydrogen. This will be a co-firing. So, yeah, I will like to briefly talk about natural gas. We see that ammonia and hydrogen will be the two newcomers, and natural gas, of course, will play an important role. So, just a very short story is that since the end of the first decade of the 21st century, ASEAN have been investing a lot in natural gas import facilities, like Thailand, also Indonesia, and Singapore. So natural gas is in fact considered to be the technology of transition. So because it emits less CO2 than coal and then oil. So it is considered to be very important in the energy transition in ASEAN. But somehow back to the period of like 2 years ago when the Russia and Ukraine conflict erupted, then a lot of projects in ASEAN were on risk of getting stranded, for example, in the Philippines or in the Vietnams. And if we look at the newspaper, we see that some South Asias like Pakistan or Bangladesh, they could not get natural gas supplied when they have the import facilities, because as Mr. Phoumin has mentioned, all of a sudden, all cargoes of LNG went to Europe, swarm European ports, because European countries can afford high price of natural gas once Russia cut its supply to Europe. So it is very important to keep investing in natural gas, because it is the way where we could get to the ammonia and hydrogen. And secondly, it is the base load that we expect to happen to use when we have more renewables, such as solar or wind. And this is the transition technology. And this is really important that we consider transition technology, not only green technology, but it is the technology that we consider important to reduce CO2. And the finance is not, the financial issue is not talked seriously, and we don't use that as a potential kind of technologies. What are they? So they are. So this is a transition technology. So the blue one, so coal avoidance by early retirement. So this is part of the JETP, like Indonesia and Vietnam are engaging to. And then we have the co-firing of low carbon fuels, like coal and biomass. Coal later on with ammonia, and then natural gas with hydrogen. And then this is the venting and fugitive emission reduction by leak detection and repair in the natural gas. And then electrification process in gas production and processing, and then CCUS and low carbon fuel production, ammonia and hydrogen again. So yes, this is just a series of transition technologies. So not only in the power generation, but also in the upstream of fuel production that we can put our focus to finance. Okay, so then this is the end of my presentation, is that how we can also use the free trade agreement, because yeah, of course, ASEAN countries, we need to develop our technology, our industry, and how we can get, how we can develop our industry, for example, in solar modules or panels industry or EV batteries, things like this. We need to start with reduce transaction costs of those materials, which is very important for us. And then, of course, as Professor Grossman mentioned this morning, there is always this kind of two different forces, which is the one is protectionism and the other is regionalism. One, we would like to protect ASEAN industries, and the other is to allow for a reduction in the, for example, levelized cost of energy or new technologies. So that's why we should come up with ideas how to use that kind of free trade agreement to develop industries. For example, ASEAN can be used as production hub of those technologies, and ASEAN can also be the center of production of hydrogen or ammonia, for first to export and then second for serving the domestic needed. I think I stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko, for enlightening us about various scenarios to reach carbon neutrality in ASEAN. So this is quite important because Dr. Joko highlighted this important exercise in terms of the baseline. If we don't do anything, keep business as usual, how emission in the region likely to reach very high by 2050, 60. But he also consider how the region as a group can reach net zero or carbon neutrality with various pathways, that including with and without carbon sink and natural carbon sink, which is forest, artificial carbon sink, which is CCUS, negative emission technology. This is quite important. So this various way is allow us to look very holistic in terms of how the transition, what kind of technology and fuel come in. He introduced several technology which is suitable for the region, technology list. If we are rely on coal-based power infrastructure, which is unabated, how you do abatement toward net zero with CCUS. And finally, you introduce many negative emission technology like direct air capture combined with CCUS, bioenergy. This is quite important. And he mentioned about just an orderly transition. This is what we need. We cannot, if we not carefully, the energy cost very high. Even this scenario, I think, give us still the marginal abatement cost. Another is the proxy of carbon price in our region, much higher than Europe, at least 6 times, I believe. If we are not able to achieve technological innovation and international support, that we need to keep in mind. Although the 3 excellent presenters present various perspectives in terms of energy transition and carbon neutrality, but I think the topic in energy transition is huge. From financing, how to make sure it can be achieved. Feel free to ask anything that relate to energy transition and carbon neutrality that we are not covered in the 3 presentations, including technology, including financing, including any fuel type transition approach. So I just stop here and open the question because we have now, I think, 40-minute question and answer. Just gentlemen have a question, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Matias Indrayana from CSRS. Because two of the panelists talking about the just energy transition, but Joko is really not begin with the energy, even though his profession is in the energy. As the ordinary people, when I come here, I got like transport allowance. I don't have energy allowance from my company. When I go work, when I go living, I need transport. How those measurement of the CO2, the emissions, when it comes to just a local, do we really measure based on the satellite? Or is actually this energy transition, it really doesn't impact the ordinary people because they are not the one who making decision. We only can make a decision. I want to go work, walking, biking, right? I don't go work, as long as I have enough energy have breakfast, I can go work. That is impacting me. But this energy transition is somehow it's just the governments, the elite people, and they want to have the model for small, medium enterprise. How does it gonna get achieved? You know, as if we don't measure the really, is it only the CO2 or all, just any toxics that are, you know, go to the air? So we really need to have local community traffic in Jakarta, really, like, you know, traffic, and we burn, you know, petrol, but we doesn't move anything. I think whether we go to the, you know, strategy transportation for this local emission, or we go for the energy which is part of the pie of the governments and the elite people.
Thank you so much, Pak, for question this. And I think, Pak Joko, you get the question, right? It's mean the energy transition should not be impacted individually and compromise with the comfortability. We cannot just, because achieving energy security, it means you have to be walking or you don't use air conditioning. You have to feel comfort and ensure that people have comfort. Not just you need to communicate by walking, you still use transport. And how we actually balance those basically. And basically, from CSIS is a think tank. So I think your question is very right to Pak Joko. And if like maybe I extend all the other two panelists to also respond if they want. Okay, Pak Joko, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Matthias, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think, yeah, you are completely right that energy transition at some point is just an elite talk. Why? Because like us ordinary people, you or me, I don't always use a public transport. I have to admit, I use also my car, and I mean, what I say is in contrary to what I do. That's the issue, because of first of the level of comfort and so on. But the thing is that I would say that there are several things. First is that the elite itself, they don't want to give us like a clear message. For example, when we talk about electric vehicles, I think there are a lot, or there are a very big interest of the industry sector that are not being said. What we bring up is like EV is good. EV is a way of mitigating climate change, but we don't talk about how electricity is produced. I mean, we don't explain to people that like I said, like if the power generation in ASEAN doesn't shift to less carbon emitting resources, then EV penetration means nothing. We don't talk about that. And for example, in transport sector, because you have brought this up, what is important is that we don't throw away fuels. The thing is that congestion, for example, is the main sources of emissions of energy wasting, and EV itself doesn't mitigate congestion. So if you would like really to talk about the energy transition, you don't bring message about, hey, buy EV, buy EV cars. No, you have to say like, use public transport. Whatever it is being the fuel of public transport, whether it is gasoline, diesel, or electric, public transport is the way to go to energy transition. Or like, for example, if you live in Jakarta or maybe in Vietnam, you have this kind of freight delivery, door to door, same day or in 1 hour instant. You don't use that. You use a way of transporting your packets using distribution centers. So that's how it is. I mean, first is that the bias of message from the elite, and then we just follow that. And yeah, I think that's the issue that we need. I mean, there are experts. We need to more vulgarize or bring down to earth what we need to do in terms of policy that will be involving more ordinary people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko. For I think there are more questions, but let me take one more question, and then we should allow online question, and then we back to the group, okay? But I can take one more question, please. The lady, please.
Thank you, Pak Phoumin. I'm Olga from UIII. So I have two questions. My first question is maybe a theoretical question for Pak Alo and Pak Phoumin Han. What's your theoretical aspect about energy and economics? That's the first question. And then the second question is to Ibu Norasikin and Professor Ha. So in terms of the energy transition, I thought that ASEAN, in this way, RCEP has concern on the energy transition. So what's your perspective or what's your analysis about this RCEP, and what is the consequences to the geopolitical tension we have now in our region, and is this against the European Union cooperation? So what's your thought about that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the question go to for us. So Pak Joko, straight. I think since you already let the two important speaker, the ladies, address first. And what is the energy transition? I
think, yeah, so, I mean, I think her first question is about the relationship between energy and economy. Energy and economy?
If you want to take up that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a theoretical question. I mean, so as an energy economist, I think the relationship between energy and economic activities, let's say so, right? It could be like bi-directional relationship, because because energy is a vital input, right, to almost production channels and to almost economic activities. But so in that regard, then we need energy for the economy to boom, right? But then when the economy is already booming, right, and then people become wealthier, then they would demand for more other kind of activities. For instance, they want to travel more, right? They want to produce more, or even they want to just to visit their friends, families. So all of those kind of activities make another round of demand for energy, right? So that's why it makes like a cycle effect, right? So so we need the energy, and that when we become richer, we also need more energy. So so that's why we do not talk about safe energy, but we talk about energy efficiency, and we talk about energy transition. So that means we still can enjoy more activities with less unit of energy, or less type of polluting energy. So so that is the story leading to energy transition.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. How about Professor Norasikin, energy transition?
Okay, okay. For me, I'm not the energy economics, but let me try what from my understanding. So when we talk about the energy and economics, when economics, we talk about the monies and dollars, right? So energy actually is monies and dollars. So when you consume, you have to pay, okay? So if you generate, you can get the profit or the return. So that is all about. And for me, for the energy transition, as the ordinary people like us, okay? Just also to highlight what Mr. Matthias,
Yes.
yeah. So I'm also, what actually related to me for energy transition? It's look like this is high level people, right? to think about the energy transition. Not me, but for me, ordinary people like us, we have to do some practices which we can save the energy at home. That's one of the we call it like the basic thing that we have to do. We have to conserve, use the energy saving equipment, and then we try to save the energy. Okay, even though we cannot get the money from the energy, but we can do a saving as ordinary people. And also for transportation, like what Pak Joko said just now, we can adopt the circular economy practices. For example, to do a sharing platform, we have a Grabs. Okay, so if you think that you cannot go some places, it's too crowded, you use the public transport, you use the Grab car. And also, if you want to buy something, let's say McDonald's or whatever, it's very far away, ask the, we have that platform, digitalization, that we use now, the digital, how important digitalization. So that's how the ordinary people have to do. Because we are not the supply side, we are at the demand side. When we talk about energy, there is demand and supply. So we are demand because we are the consumer, okay? The supply side have to make sure that they produce the energy from the green or low carbon material or sources. That's my
Thank you, Professor Norasikin. I don't know how much you satisfied with the answer, but let Joko, please.
Yes, just very short. So, what are the aspects between energy and economics? So, for me, it is affordability. When you have a clean energy technology affordable, it will work. And the second thing is that you need to secure that the purchasing power is there. Without any purchasing power, there is no energy transition. So that's why we have come up with this kind of transition technology and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wrap up, not respond to your question. Energy and economic are well associated. I think we need energy for to sustain life, to support well-being, to service, to do energy service. And but it's important when we do transition. It means we transition toward zero emission. It means the carbon intensity, the way we produce product, it become very low carbon. It means we use clean energy. That's why it not affect environment, because this climate change impact us, impact environment where we live. So that's why we continue to use energy, but in a way that cleaner and still serve our purpose. Believe me, there is crisis. Human very smart. We always have solution. As the speaker has mentioned, you have technology to support. You have many things that AI technology will come in. And energy become more efficient because we able to use technologies. You talk about smart grid, you will use many things that traditional way we do will not see in the next decade. Everything managed by technologies, even our supply side, the lights, everything become more efficient. We get cleaner, but you need capital investment to transform those. And I think there are a lot of challenges, but trust that we will be there. And I want to take one question from the people who participate online. And to all speakers, what do you think about carbon trade? And could it speed up the energy transition? I think this is quite important. Who want to take it up first?
Yeah, I can.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so I can just give a very brief answer, and then the remaining speaker can help me to add up. I think we all know that carbon trading is a market mechanism that allows companies in industry and even the government, right, to to buy and sell the carbon credit. And of course, it would help to speed up the energy transition. And that is the reason why nowadays people talk a lot about building up the carbon market. And why is that? Because when we have that kind of trading mechanism, then it will motivate firms and companies and sectors to invest more in the green energy project, and also it's facilitate the technological transfer across sector, across industry, across companies, even across the countries. And it's also accelerate the collaboration across sectors, across government, right? So that is the main mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ha. Professor Norasikin?
Okay. So, okay, for my simple view on the carbon trade, for me, the carbon trade can be one of the mechanism to drive us for the energy transition. But it's depend to the country regulation, since that I think all the countries in this region still at the stage of preparing the guidelines, yeah, and also how to calculate the carbon emission to trade it, yeah, and also we need baseline, actually a proper baseline for us in terms of the energy trading, because it is we can call it like a short or short term, actually a short term, because by, let's say, by 2050, if we can achieve the energy net zero energy, so there is no more energy, carbon emission trading, right? So maybe this is a short term, but how we want to enforce, I think it's depend to the country, okay? And we should have like more local benefit. So this is what I can recommend, because I think the current that we have is more to the local benefit. I think it's too small. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Norasikin. Yeah, could you please put question number 2, which relate to question number 1? I want to address one for all. To all speakers, what is the scope of green trade? Is it only refer to facilitate cross-border transaction on environmental and renewable goods? Do you have any idea framework to accelerate green trade without making trade-off to national economic growth during transition period? I think some of the answer have addressed, so I combined 1 and 2. And Pak Joko, any last word on this kind of question?
Yes, yeah, thank you so much. So I think this relates to what I presented just recently. So that, for example, one of the main challenges for ASEAN countries is a high levelized cost of clean energy or renewable electricity. So that one of the way to reduce that, apart from giving like fit-in tariff, as Professor Ha or Dr. Ha has mentioned previously, is by making the local industry grows. So, but the first thing to do is to allow this kind of free trade of the high tech to be able to be imported to the country. And I think we should not be too afraid of that kind of exchange. For example, Indonesia at some point has put the requirement of local content, minimum percentage of local content for like solar panels or solar modules. And it has been kind of constraint to the development of industry itself. So why don't we just let allow and use the free trade agreement to allow this kind of benefits of those agreement to have like free exchange of this material first. And then if the demand, if not there, for example, if the demand for the renewable electricity is not there, or for the hydrogen or ammonia or battery related technologies is not there, we can first develop the industry to serve for export. And this has been done by Malaysia, for example, for the solar PV. And I think doing that, it will also increase the demand inside the country. Then we will go to the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Joko and Dr. Ha and Professor Norasikin. I think 2 questions are related, but in a way just summarizing that this carbon trade is quite important. This is the powerful tool that you can make industry to change, shifting toward cleaner. If you don't impose the carbon tax, You don't cap. You have to put the carbon trade and cap it, and then you have to trade. This mechanism, if without you, when you impose the carbon tax, and you're not allowed to have market to trade, there's no way. When you impose the tax on industry who polluting, it's an economic tool. It's a polluter paying principle. But you allow market to trade in order to make innovative, to transit from coal, from fossil fuel toward cleaner technology. And this tax had to be progressive toward 2050 to net zero. If you keep, let's say, Indonesia $2 carbon tax on coal, no one will innovate technology because easy to pay, very cheap. You need to impose the right carbon tax and progressively increase those to hurt the industry. They take innovative. Another side of instrument they call carbon credit. It's allow people who invest in the renewable and clean technology to earn credit. When you have that credit, you can trade. If you don't have market to trade, who will pay that carbon credit? It's a subsidy, which is government money. Government spending from where? From tax. They collect your money. So you understand this? They are very powerful tool, but there are a lot of challenges. To do that, you need to have market agreement, market player, and you need several like ASEAN regional agreement, and internationally like CBAM, like carbon border adjustment. If those systems not in place, it's difficult. Because if any single country impose carbon tax, it hurt the economy because the overall cost will increase for that particular country. And that export product will be not competitive to others that do not have carbon tax. So I think this question is quite important, and it will be now all countries in ASEAN take this initiative. I think we need time to discuss this more. But the mechanism behind that, you need accounting standard, environmental accounting, that the same rule procedure in order to recognize those credits, okay? Thank you so much for this question. I think we still have time around 15 minutes. If you're still interested in this session, please come up. I see the lady on the back, and followed by one lady and then the gentleman, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heni Kurniasi from the Semeru Research Institute. I have a question regarding the roles of local government in energy transition in Vietnam and Malaysia. And I'm wondering whether maybe the context of the governance in Indonesia and in Vietnam or Malaysia is not the same, but maybe by looking at for example, the municipalities, or if in Indonesian case is the districts or provincial government roles are very important to make sure the energy transition actually happening. I'm wondering how it also happened in Vietnam and also Malaysia. Thank you.
Okay, can I collect two more questions, and I know where to direct those questions. Please, Ibu, please. Yeah.
I would like to thank the panel members for excellent presentation and an excellent moderation by Dr. Han. I'm Caroline Baichon-Sonario of the ASEAN Insurance Council. Mine is not really a question, but an invitation to work together. So I would like to inform you that one of our working committees, the ASEAN Reinsurance Working Committee, has a project which is the ASEAN Green Energy Pool. So this is for wind and solar power. So if you notice, would be the new clean energy. And if just one company will insure, I don't think the risk would be too high. So they're coming up with an initiative to have a pool. And this is initiated by Malaysian Re and the present chairman, Indonesia Re of this committee, and of course supported by the National Re of the Philippines, and Cambodia Re is part of this committee too, and Vina Re from Vietnam. So and Thyri Life. So they plan to have the contract signed by the underwriter by October and launched this in January 2024. And we would like to cooperate with any institutions who would be willing to join us. And so there will be a hastening of the transition to clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inform us the new initiative, ASEAN Reinsurance Pool. Working group, yes. Oh, okay. That quite good initiative to accelerate renewable in ASEAN. So thank you so much this information. I saw the question from one gentleman. Yes, he's raised long there.
Three short questions. First to Dr. Hang. Firstly, you highlight the importance of expansion and modernizations of power infrastructures in Vietnam. What about the potential or the opportunities of the circular economy that's actually proposed by the previous speaker, Dr. Norasikin? Is it like having less advantages to be empowered in Vietnam? That's the first. To Dr. Norasikin, you also expose the potentials of sharing economic models. But basically, as far as I know, that Asian countries are dominated by different level of economic structures. For example, like some of them, like developed one, like Singapore, highly developed, moderately developed, or even less developed. So what do you think about the sharing economic models that have generalizability impact? Means that it is feasible to be applied in almost like every region of Asia. And the last one to Prof. Joko is like similar to the questions given by the online participants. It's about carbon trade, because I see that Asian countries are dominantly developing countries that are focusing on industrialization. So actually, by allowing carbon trade, it would also means that they still to progress to the carbon neutrality means that it's dilution, because at the same time, all developed countries that are participating from like FDI trade or export, they would still like propagate all their works in these developing countries. Means that they will buy as much as possible carbon credits to these developing countries, and it would like so hard to even like 2050 with zero net carbon. So do you think that carbon trade is the principal determinants to the decrease of zero carbon? And do you think that should we just prohibit carbon trade in developing countries like in Asian region, so that it could like maximize the efficiency in the executions of net zero carbon policies? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the question is clearly addressed all speakers, and also the lady on the back asking about the governance issue for Vietnam and Malaysia, and all the three questions from gentlemen. But I just want to collect more questions. Keep in mind, and they will address one for all. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Han. I'm Ilham Nugraha from Institut Teknologi Bandung. I would like to ask one thing. Maybe it could be answered by all the speakers, I believe. I don't know if it was asked previously, because I was going to other room. The thing that I really want to mention is that energy transition could also lead to, say, climate jobs. I'm hesitant to say green jobs, because green jobs is not merely all things, but climate jobs. In the past 2 years, I helped several labor unions in the United States to talk about climate jobs and potential of building new jobs from climate actions, like the IRA and IIJA, which, you know, the IRA and also the Solar Congressional Review Act also acting towards that. Could we, ASEAN as a single market, to talk about the potential climate jobs within the region, and also I also mentioned about solar climate, the Solar Congressional Review Act, which was vetoed by President Biden last May, gladly. No solar panel from Southeast Asia could be added other tariffs like 250%. Could we, to prevent other initiatives from Congress to lead to their climate jobs, build our ecosystem within ASEAN to build the economy within us. Like, okay, we go to deglobalization, to deglobalize economy, let's go deglobalize then. Okay, how do you think it could be developed in the next couple of years?
Thank you, but your question right, because they are all the energy economists.
Yeah.
So they will respond to you, your concern about whether this moving forward, clean technology, renewable, how it affect job, create job, they will respond to you. I saw one question from the lady, please.
My name is Abita and I'm on my second year of pursuing bachelor degree in geophysics in Universitas Indonesia and currently having a short intern in SDM or Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. So Indonesia can adapt easily on using the renewable energy because we got a lot of potential in the geothermal energy. As we knew, we will have the geothermal island in Flores. But what do you think will happen to big oil and gas companies following the society around it? My question is, as for now, can we say that oil and gas company promote the energy transition by showing that they have a good regulation and care about the oil and gas company social responsibility? Besides that, we also have the trading carbon policy for the energy transition, because obviously following the using the good regulation and care about the ONG company social responsibility is the bare minimum. But as I mentioned before, it is a developed country, so it will be not that easy to do the energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Very long question. But Pak Joko, you need to get clear. This about the in Flores, in Indonesia, that with the geothermal oil and gas industry upstream, particularly how this regulation, environmental issue that can ensure the social benefit in the community and others, and also ensure how those kind of development linked to energy transition, something like that. I think all the experts know the question and they go just in one. So I think because they're expert, they can get all the summary, all the questions. So you have chance to ask. So I think because of time, so I do like this, so I able to collect many questions as well. So maybe I start with Dr. Ha first, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank for your friendliness. So because many people ask questions, now I have to recall the question. Okay, forgive me if I missed some question, but as far as I remember, then there is a question about the situation, there is a support from the government in Vietnam, right? Then apart from the feed-in tariff, we have several kind of supporting mechanism for the adoption of renewable energy, such as they have the land lease incentive or import tax waiver for equipment or renewable energy project. They also have the loans, of course, very special loan incentive for renewable energy project, and they also have, suddenly I forgot. And apart from those supporting incentive, then the government also, there is a question about financing scheme. Then apart from the JETP, apart from seeking the support from the international or regional organization like JETP, of course, the government also find the financial support from the private sector. So that's why we have what we call PPP, public partnership, public-private partnership. So the private sector play a very important role, not only in terms of supporting the financials, the monetary issues, but also in terms of providing technical support. And from the beginning, the gentleman from CSIS talk about it should be the elite group, right? But I think energy transition can start from the very ordinary people. Like before energy transition started in Vietnam, some ordinary people, they know how to install solar panel on their house roof. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ha. For those who not yet satisfied the answer, catch her outside the room after this, okay? Please, Professor Norasikin.
Okay, I would like to answer from our young man just now about the climate job, right? The transition of the climate job. Okay, this is actually one of another issue actually in this region about the climate job or the green job, because we are going for energy transition, but our what we call it, the competency sometimes is not enough for that. So this is the role actually, because I'm from the university. So the role of university, not only from university, even should be from the school, that we have to revise our syllabus or the module or the program of the university according to the current market of the jobs. And we also have a discussion previously, I have a discussion with the oil and gas company where they said they have a lack of staff to do all their green jobs, okay? So the way is to have a collaboration with the industry actually, especially from the university. If you have a degree or master's or PhD, if you are enrolled now, should have the project or your research related to the industry. You should have already have linkages or network with industry. So that is the preparation, okay, in terms of the research, okay. And for the existing staff, also they said that you should have a upscaling the skill, okay, upscaling the skill, organize a training to update about the technology or anything about the finance or about the human resource related to the green or sustainability. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Professor Norasikin. Dr. Joko.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to first answer the question about the carbon trade again, because I just don't remember which one, but maybe this gentleman in front that asked about if we need to stop developed countries doing carbon trading in developing countries, if I'm not mistaken. So that I think we need to be in the level of playing field first to go to the situation. And in that case, I would be back to Dr. Phoumin mentioned that first of all, if one country in ASEAN, for example Indonesia, will go up with its own carbon pricing system, then it will just kind of suicidal because it will damage Indonesian economy by itself. Then we need to have a system that works, that makes the region, all countries in the region at the level playing field. And then I think we need to move in that direction, going up altogether in ASEAN level. And then in that way, we can also negotiate with the more developed countries how we would like to trade with them, and that in the way that our interests will not be jeopardized. And and then the second question is about that is about the climate jobs. So I see the two things. The first thing is that there was there is an opportunity for ASEAN countries, for example, to create a lot of green jobs by welcoming investment of foreign countries to establish solar panel industry or EV battery industry in the countries. But the thing is that then we need to look for market, and okay, I will just let know about Chinese investment in Malaysia or in Indonesia. I think we can see that as an opportunity to build production hub of the region. But then that was a strategy of China to in this kind of trade war with US to kind of offshoring their production hub to other countries. But now as you mentioned that Biden showed that as a threat to the inflationary act, I think, then we are now in the more difficult situation because ASEAN countries are no longer havens for those kind of industry from China. So in this case again, ASEAN as region need to look for other markets than US or to complement one another in the region. Then that will be one of the things that we can do. And second thing about the green job is that when we talk about green job as potential sources of jobs, we need to talk about also of the maybe brown or gray jobs that we risk to lose, like in industry or the automotive industry, for example, or like in the oil company when we will get more EV, then we will lose a lot. We'll be losing more jobs in the oil retailing, and this kind of thing that we need to prepare. One of the experts from the Indonesian automotive sector said to me, EV is okay, but please don't do it all of a sudden, because we have a lot of experts in automotive industries. This kind of thing we need to prepare. And then for the oil and gas company, the last question from the lady here. I'm sorry if I'm mistaken your point, but I guess oil and gas company need to survive, and this will be beyond CSR. Will be beyond CSR, but it is about their the continuity of their business plan in the future, because if they stay in the oil and gas, then like in the 20, 30 years, they will be out of market. And I guess that like what Pertamina has done, or PTT or Petronas has done now, they are much more than CSR. They would like to expand their their business model, not only oil and gas, but also like hydrogen, CCUS or CSS as part of the new technology. I think they will go to that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joko and Professor Ha, Professor Norasikin. I just wrap up that all I think your concern has been to some extent satisfied. If you're not satisfied, catch them outside, okay? You still have time, but it's a good news is the world has been prepared now. If you talk about energy transition in the last 5 years, 10 years, something is quite strange. Right? We used to something we like it, power generation. We don't use much technology, but everything changed suddenly. And the good news is every single dollar investment to fossil fuel, you see how much it go for renewable and clean technology. $1.7 go to clean technology and renewable. This implies your question is job. The more investment go to clean fuel, technology, renewable, it creates job. But Professor Norasikin has addressed already. How you going to address with people in coal mine, power who operate already in the way we used to operate? You need to relocate those to ensure that no one left behind. She already said, some need to be reskilled. The person, worker who already in the mine industry, coal mining, they need to shift to other kind of job. They need to reskill or maybe upgrading their skill. So that preparedness had to be there. Investment had to be there. But the good news is investment going to increase more and more in renewable and clean technology and allow us to do transition. And I think because 2 hours may not enough. Perhaps we need another such kind of seminar again. And energy transition is taking place, and you will see that a lot of changing in terms of transport we never see before. When we talk about EV car in the past few years, we always enjoy internal combustion engine. But now it's going to hybrid and going to 100 EV. And the problem is end use now moving to electricity. And you need to decarbonize at the source, which is power generation. So I think we will be there, and we need to put mind together and think together, like many of I see young generation here, and that I think we rely on you to really say put stakeholders together to drive this to reach carbon neutrality by 2050, 60 in our region. Without saying further, I think let we give big applause to the speaker and also to ourselves because we participate. Okay, thank you so much, by the way. Okay, just the organizers remind that all the material available in this, you just scan it, okay? And if you want to fill evaluation form, please feel free to do. And yes, there is also, just scan there, okay? Thank you so much, by the way, for your participation. Thank you.